Betty Friedan, The Voice for Women. This presentation is on Betty Friedan and what she did for women. As we know, women did not have equal freedom, and she used her voice and power to help women reclaim their own power. So who is Betty Friedan? Betty Friedan was born February 4th, 1921, to Harry Goldstein, a Russian immigrant, and Miriam Goldstein, a Hungarian immigrant, which I thought was really interesting because both of my parents are Hungarian immigrants, so I just thought that was really cool. She was also a really big key figure in the second wave of feminism and is the author of The Feminine Mystique, where she exposes the reality of housewives. There was a turning point in the world because unhappy women stuck at home got their voices heard and fought for with this book. She is also the founder of the National Organization for Women, which is an organization devoted to achieving full equality for women through education and litigation, as they state on their website, because they are still active and they are still working in the world. So some historical context as to why she did what she did. So women were oppressed, and they have been for all of their lives, and women, they were done. There was unfair access and opportunities in the workplace for them, unfair pay, as in men got more for the same job, no abortion or birth control rights for themselves, and they really couldn't make that choice for themselves either. They didn't get the same opportunities for education, and they didn't have the same freedom to themselves like men did. So all of this going on is the reason that women just said they are done with how they were being treated, and that's when this feminism started to happen, or first wave of feminism, because women started to stand up for themselves. The first wave of feminism from 1900 to 1920 was a start for women to come together and have their voices heard. This was a really, really big thing for them, and even in 1920, women got the right to vote, which was huge because millions of women banded together to make this change. The second wave of feminism is the one where Betty Friedan herself was the most active in and in charge of, because that is when she was alive for it. She was born literally after the first wave of feminism, so she was only active in the second one. But this era was full of women protesting for equal access to everything, especially their bodies. They wanted to get back their power for their bodies. But they mainly were fighting and protesting for their own freedom and happiness, because as we know with the feminine mystique, she exposed how unhappy housewives were. So everything was just fighting for happiness and for women to be happy at home. They were fighting to be in charge of their own body and person, and Betty Friedan was responding to and challenging the masculine society that thought a woman's place in the world was in the kitchen. Her book, The Feminine Mystique, was how she responded, because she let the whole world know how unhappy housewives truly were. And she challenged the whole idea that women should be in the kitchen, because she exposed how unhappy and how awful it is for a woman to be stuck at home. So she had many achievements, but she had 4 main ones that really stood out to me. So she was very successful in getting women's voices heard, because she was a huge activist and was always putting herself out there. As stated, she is the author of The Feminine Mystique, and this book became huge for women all over with the same issue of the problem that has no name. She also helped found and start the National Organization for Women, which fights for equality that starts from reproductive rights to economic equality and anything in between. So this is just really big because this was put in place to keep women with freedom, with equality. This was to keep laws in check so that women had the same freedom and rights as men do. Since she was a huge activist, she actively participated in many active issues at the time, like abortion. Even though it is still a hot topic that is highly debated to this day, it was also back then in the day. The National Abortion Rights Action League was founded in 1969, and as the name suggests, it was created to fight abortion laws that make it difficult for women to get one. So it was basically put in place so that women would have a fair chance to get an abortion, and they would have some type of law fighting for them so that they could get an abortion, basically. She also helped create and put together the Women's Strike for Equality in 1970. That was a huge strike where thousands of women marched together to raise awareness for the inequality that women faced. So this was really, really, really big. And the picture that I included is a picture that was taken from the Women's Strike for Equality. So there were some obstacles and critiques that she faced. And then also the question of did she change pops up. So The simple answer is yes, she was critiqued, but no, she did not change. So she did many amazing things for women, but she really only focused on the white ones. She was highly criticized for only paying attention to white women in suburban homes rather than being diverse and fighting for the rights of all women. Because of this criticism, her voice started to fade, and she didn't have the same following as new leaders who thought more modernly than her and accepted people of all kinds and fought for people of all kinds. She never changed how she thought because she thought that what she fought for was only going to work in the way that she was fighting for it. So basically, she believed there was only hope for change if she kept things the way that she had created them to be, which really doesn't make sense, but she was basically in her own little bubble and thought that what she was doing was the only correct thing. She was also criticized for being too nice to men, since the whole fight women were in was against men. So she just had a lot of criticism in general. People just thought that she wasn't as pro-feminist as she was saying that she was, basically. Just as the way the world works, younger generations are more drawn to the modern part of the world. So as her views remained traditional, younger, more modern potential followers found other activists who were diverse to support. And so her voice started to fade, but her voice also still made a really big impact, and her name still stands in history. So I just have a little timeline at the end. It's not the best because I was a little bit struggling, but as you can see, basically 1921, women could vote. 1921, she was born. The second wave of feminism started in 1948, which is the one that she was active in. And then just the main achievements I have. So the Feminine Mystique came out in 1963. The National Organization of Women came out in 1966. The National Abortion Rights came out in 1969, and then Women's Strike for Equality in 1970. And there was a lot more done afterwards, but this was the main stuff that I thought was very important to her. So yeah, this is Betty Friedan, and this is what she did. She had a really big impact on women's rights. However, she did have her own issues, but at least she was able to make some kind of history. And so yeah, that's Betty Friedan.